Hello everyone, welcome back to my series on Calvinism. This is episode 4, and so that means that we are going to be covering the fourth point of Calvinism, which is, as you can see here, irresistible grace. So I've written a little definition here, which is human beings cannot choose God, meaning that God chooses them in an act that cannot be overcome by human will. And I found this passage in Ephesians, it's Ephesians 2, 4-5, and Calvinists apparently use this passage online, at least that's what I have seen, in order to support this general idea that God chooses people, and if God chooses you, you cannot resist in any sort of way, hence irresistible grace. Very theological discussion to be had about what grace is and how it works and how God interacts with us, as the way that God interacts with us is his grace. So the passage here, but God, out of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead through our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. So the reason this appears to, at first glance, support the Calvinist position, understandably, at first glance, is that it describes us, sinners, as being dead through our trespasses, and just like Lazarus being raised by Christ, he had no choice in the matter as he was dead, and Christ brings him out of the grave. And in a spiritual sense, that is what this part is saying here, where we have no choice in the matter. Now, I would like to bring up Ephesians 2:18. This is the next paragraph down, about halfway through, and it says, "For through him both of us have access in one spirit to the Father." And the reason I bring this up is because this is one of the parts of Ephesians that puts the general book of Ephesians, when it talks about free will, into perspective. So all of Ephesians 2 is effectively about free will, and there's other places as well where it's mentioned. And so this part here, you can see it says both of us have access in one spirit to the Father. Not that we are forced in any sort of way, but we have access, we have the opportunity, implying a will that we might have, and we get to choose. Of course, it's not explicit. In fact, neither of these passages are explicit about whether we have a free will or not. But including this later passage, you can make an inference that perhaps this isn't talking about what the Calvinists would call irresistible grace. And so, in order to explain that, I have some extended metaphors, as I do love those, and some little drawings here. So, this would be the metaphor for the grace. So you've got some food here. This person wants to survive. Now, this is the Catholic view, is that you get a choice. Do you want to eat the food, or do you not? Do you want to not eat the food? Now, if you choose the food, then you can't really say that you survived of your own accord. You needed the food to do so. Hence why, without the food or without grace, we are damned effectively, as is the general Catholic belief that all salvation is through grace, and that's also just a general Christian belief as well. The difference that we have is about how that grace is applied and what the grace is, and the general application to the Jews and the Gentiles, and the new Israel, which is the church today, and whether that's a visible church. And there are various discussions that Calvinists and other Protestants will have with Catholics and Orthodox and Coptics and such. But anyway, so here we have this bowl. Now, there's two people here, and they both get the choice whether they want to eat from the bowl here, and there's enough food. Here, there's an apple here and a banana here. Yes, that is a banana. I know it's not a particularly good drawing. So there's enough food here for both of them, and they get a choice as to whether they want to eat from the bowl or not, which would be in line with this part of Ephesians. And if you read this part through the Catholic lens, then there is no part here which strictly says that we are forced to eat from the bowl, as I've drawn here. Now, bringing back the claw from the first video, we have the ceiling fan there controlling the claw. I've tried to make the claw look a little nicer as well. It looked a bit sinister in the first video, so I hope I've done a better job there. Let me know. But this would be the Calvinist view, wherein God chooses someone and forces them to have the food or the grace, as the grace is irresistible, which means that necessarily he forces others not to have it, and that this person doesn't get any food because the claw arm of the Holy Apostolic ceiling fan has decided to feed this person and that is decided before they do anything. That's decided before they are created, which I covered in the previous video on unconditional election, and actually a little bit in all the previous videos. And so I wanted to bring up, finally, this part of Augustine's City of God. This is Book 14, Chapter 11, which says, "The will, therefore, is truly free when it is not the slave of vices and sins. Such was it given us by God." I nearly said to us. That would have been embarrassing considering I wrote it out. Anyway, so the reason I bring this up is because obviously Augustine, very great theologian, lived over 1,500 years ago, and so if Augustine says something, it is highly, highly likely that the church at the time thought the same sort of thing, and also Catholics have based a lot of their theology around Augustine. It's either Augustine or Aquinas, and I've quoted both of them in this series, and I'll likely keep doing so in future videos. So here we can see Augustine resolves that the will is free, however, we can only choose good things, lest we be slaves to vices and sins, through the grace of God. And so that would align with the Catholic view here, where you can choose to eat, let's say, anything you like, but if you want to eat food, as in something that will actually sustain you, then the food must be there. God must give you the food. If this food wasn't here, then you could choose to do whatever you wanted except eat, because there'd be no food. So that is the general idea that Augustine speaks of here. So Calvinists, please let me know if I have steel-manned or straw-manned your arguments, as obviously I am learning as well, doing this series and researching and trying to find Bible passages to talk about and to contrast and things. And I am reading City of God, so I wanted to put a quote from there as well. But let me know in the comments if I have done a good job. Obviously, if not, then please do correct me. I'm not going to pretend to be a scholar or to know everything by any means. So, thank you for watching. God bless, like and subscribe. And also, please go and watch the previous video as well. Watch part 3, which I think, what would that have been on? Let's see if my slides are gonna... There we go. That would have been on Limited Atonement, so please go and watch that. And have a blessed day.